Good morning, this is Frank, and today I'll be reading to you from the Provincetown banner from May 15th, Thursday, May 15th. First article is Right Whales Ring In, Acoustic Buoy Starts Listening by Heather McCarran. Cape Cod and Massachusetts bays have new sets of ears, and they're listening for one of the most endangered creatures in the world, the North Atlantic right whale. Recently, the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries joined forces with the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution to deploy a cutting-edge passive acoustic system that detects the presence of whales in near real time. As part of the effort, 2 buoys were placed this spring, one in the heart of Cape Cod Bay, a seasonal hotspot for right whales, and one off Cape Ann, which the whales swim by on their way to their summer habitat in Canada's Gulf of St. Lawrence. It's a game changer for conservation efforts and a new chapter in the watching out for the protecting the roughly 370 right whales left on the planet. Developed by Hui, the buoy listens for whale calls and transmits data every 2 hours, and they quickly began proving their value. Within hours of deployment, they detected whale chatter in Cape Cod Bay, including the vocalization of endangered right whales, according to Aaron Burke, Protected Species Program Manager for the State Marine Fisheries Division. It's an opportunity to better understand North Atlantic right whales and educate the public, Burke said. Hui scientist Mark Baumgartner developed the software that runs on the listening instrument, which is mounted on an aluminum frame about 4 feet by 4 feet positioned on the seafloor. We have a mooring system that was designed to be quiet, he said, explaining that the frame is tethered with slack lines known as stretch hoses. We don't want all the noise and motion from the surface to make it down to the bottom. Listening for right whales from 5 miles away. As long as there isn't a vessel in the immediate vicinity of the buoy, he said, the instrument can detect right whales from about 5 miles away. It means we're monitoring relatively large areas, certainly further than you can see, Baumgartner said. Every 2 hours, a buoy phones home with data, he said. Researchers analyze the vocalizations to confirm the presence of whales and the species producing the sounds. While the detections don't reveal the exact locations of the individual whales, they alert mariners and scientists to the animal's presence in a given area. Baumgartner compares it to a school zone. The lights flash to warn drivers that children might be nearby, he said, but they don't say little Johnny is on the sidewalk and little Mary is in the crosswalk. Buoys can listen when human teams aren't around. The new data isn't just nice to have, he noted. It's essential for the real-time management of fishing closures, vessel speed limits, and other measures aimed at keeping the whales safe from human activity. In his mind, the buoys are another important tool in a basket full of tools and are especially useful to fill in the gaps when scientific monitoring teams in the air and on the water are not operating. The new buoys expand a broader East Coast effort to monitor right whales, Baumgartner said. In total, 11 now track whale activity from Massachusetts to Florida, including off Martha's Vineyard in the New York Bight, off Atlantic City, Ocean City, Cape Charles, Charleston, Norfolk, and Savannah. 2 additional buoys also operate on the West Coast near San Francisco and in Santa Barbara Channel. Data is shared publicly through the Robots for Whales platform, and whales can also be monitored at Whale Map. That means anyone can access the information and follow along with whale movements, and not just right whales, but also other species that visit local waters, including humpback, fin, and SEI whales. Cape Cod Bay is a hotspot for these whales, making the 2 new buoys especially important. More than 2/3 of the remaining North Atlantic right whales spend time in the bay every winter and spring. But as human activities and climate change threaten their survival, the need for more targeted conservation strategies is more urgent than ever, according to researchers. It's so important for people to understand that these whales are part of our community, said Baumgartner. By adding Cape Ann and Cape Cod Bay to the network, we're not just gathering data, we're raising awareness and supporting the management measures that help protect these animals. Massachusetts has the most stringent regulations to protect right whales in the country and is a leader in protection efforts, according to Dan McKiernan, who directs the State Marine Fisheries Division. With this new data, DMF can build on our existing monitoring efforts and leverage the best available science to achieve coexistence. State AG sues Trump over wind energy policies. Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell sued President Donald Trump and his administration May 5th over his attempt to halt the development of wind power. On January 20th, Trump signed a presidential memorandum that suspended the sale of offshore and onshore wind leases and permitting for such projects from all areas of the U.S. outer continental shelf. While the order was not supposed to not stop wind farms that had already gone through the permitting process, which includes some of the ongoing developments off the coast of Massachusetts, the Attorney General's office said that federal agencies did stop a fully permitted project in New York. Massachusetts has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into offshore wind to ensure our residents have access to well-paying green jobs and reliable, affordable energy that help meet our clean energy and climate goals, said Campbell. The president's attempt to stop homegrown wind energy development directly contradicts his claims that there is a growing need for reliable domestic energy. My colleagues and I will continue to challenge the administration's unlawful actions to chill investment and growth of this critical industry. The attorneys general are asking the court to declare Trump's order illegal and prevent the administration from delaying or preventing wind energy development in any way. Campbell filed a lawsuit along with a coalition of 18 attorneys general. What does the wind energy lawsuit say? The coalition of attorneys general argue in the lawsuit that the directive violates the Administrative Procedure Act, which establishes procedures federal agencies must follow for rulemaking and adjudication. They say that there was no explanation for indefinitely pausing all wind energy development, and the sudden halt violates the many state statutes prescribing the process and timelines for developing wind energy. In addition, the attorneys general argue that the order harms their states by not allowing them to pursue diversified and affordable sources of energy, nor to meet clean energy goals. Plus, the states have already invested billions of dollars in wind energy. Due to the president's directive, any project that has not received all federal approvals cannot proceed, threatening the state's long-term energy reliability and affordability. The Massachusetts Attorney General's office said in a press release, without offshore wind, the cost of energy of New England customers is expected to increase by about 50% in 2050. What is offshore wind versus onshore wind? Does the EO impact both? Offshore wind energy is the power captured by wind turbines from winds blowing over bodies of water like the ocean, according to the Federal Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. Onshore wind energy comes from the wind turbines located on land. Onshore wind farms are the rows of wind turbines located on swaths of land across the country. What are the offshore wind projects in Massachusetts? Some of the offshore wind projects in Massachusetts include South Coast Wind, which will be located south of Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket and proposes up to 2,400 megawatts of capacity. There are also other projects off Martha's Vineyard, including Martha Vineyard Wind and Vineyard Wind 2. How many lawsuits has A.G. Campbell filed against Trump? As of Monday, Campbell has filed 15 lawsuits against the Trump administration during his second term. They include lawsuits against his executive orders on birthright citizenship, his administration's mass firing of federal workers, and the power of Elon Musk in the Department of Government Efficiency. This lawsuit on wind power, along with lawsuits related to the Trump administration's withholding education funding over DEI policies and cuts to the AmeriCorps program, are her most recent lawsuits. Nationwide, there are over 100 lawsuits against the administration. You can use this graphic to see all the lawsuits Campbell has filed so far, grouped and colored by subject area. This chart does not include Campbell's other actions against the Trump administration, such as amicus briefs or open letters. Meet the West Dennis astronomer on watch for star overdue to go nova. From his home in West Dennis, amateur astronomer Gary Walker has his sights set on a cosmic prize. being the first person to spot the next nova from T Coronae Borealis, a stellar eruption that could temporarily add a new bright star to the night sky between now and September. Boosting his chances are the two remote telescopes he regularly uses to scan the sky, one in New Mexico, the other in Spain, both currently programmed to keep nightly watch on the binary system 3,000 light years away. He's monitored T Corona for the past few years. It's an unusual object that has a faint magnitude in the sky, but every 80 years it has an outburst. It will become visible to the naked eye, possibly even in downtown Boston or New York City, he said. The last time it happened was 1946, Walker said, so it would be very interesting to be the first person since to see an outburst. Many other amateur astronomers are also diligently watching it, hoping to capture the honor. When the nova does occur, T Coronae will brighten over a period of 8 hours to a couple of days, then fade within just a few days. You have to be just lucky enough to happen while you're watching, Walker said. Tracking a star on the brink. T Coronae, about 3,000 light years away in the constellation Corona Borealis, was expected to go nova in 2024. That didn't happen, but NASA recently reignited anticipation after detecting activity changes that could signal an eruption sooner than later. Walker said the system often flickers and dims, keeping everyone guessing. But, like NASA observers, he also recently noticed unusual activity that's got him and others closer to the edges of their seats. I observed it got fainter more than it typically does, he said, though it's difficult to know if that's meaningful. Astronomers last recorded an eruption from this system in 1946, which previous outbursts documented in 1866 and 1787. The oldest known record dates to 1217. Walker got hooked on sky gazing at 14 after glimpsing Saturn through a neighbor's telescope. He later spent 17 years as a telescope engineer at Maria Mitchell Observatory on Nantucket and now splits his observing time on his two remote scopes with fellow skywatchers. I get between 2 and 4 hours a night on each telescope, he said. The operation is controlled via software, and you tell it which object you want to observe, where, and when. Walker and other observers feed their data into the American Association of Variable Star Observers, where both professionals and amateurs track subtle changes in brightness that could signal an oncoming nova. What is a nova? T Coronae consists of two stars, a white dwarf and a red giant, engaged in a slow-motion exchange of mass. A nova happens when a white dwarf siphons hydrogen gas from a nearby larger companion, typically a red giant or a sun-like star. As the gas builds up on the white dwarf's surface, the pressure and heat eventually trigger a thermonuclear explosion, causing the star to brighten dramatically for a short time. The white dwarf survives the blast, and the process of gas accumulation and eruption can repeat. The correct term is a recurrent nova, Walker said. That's different from a supernova, he added, which is a star that's burned through all of its hydrogen and helium and dies in a final catastrophic explosion. Novae only happen in binary or multiple star systems, where a white dwarf closely orbits a larger companion. Eventually, the T Coronae red giant will shed its outer layers and become a white dwarf too, likely ending the nova cycle. It's not massive enough ever to burst as a supernova. How bright could the nova get? T Coronae Borealis usually shines a faint magnitude of 5.5, just on the edge of a naked eye visibility under perfect dark sky conditions. It's a 17.6 quadrillion miles from Earth, so far that NASA's fastest spacecraft, the Parker Solar Probe, would take 4.7 million years to reach it. When T Coronae erupts, astronomers expect it to reach at least magnitude 2. For context, on the astronomical magnitude scale, where lower numbers indicate brighter objects, Venus shines at about negative 4.5, Jupiter at negative 2, Saturn around plus 0.5, and Mars typically near 1.5. A magnitude 2 nova would make T Coronae Borealis one of the brighter stars visible at night. It may even be visible in telescopes in the daytime if you know exactly where to look, Walker said. If the white dwarf has pulled in more material than usual, its nova will be more luminous. How to observe the event? To spot the nova, start by locating the constellation Corona Borealis. Right now it appears high in the sky after midnight, Walker said. Then all summer long it will become visible earlier and earlier. In the fall it will be visible somewhat west of overhead. The nova will appear between two bright stars, Arcturus in the Boötes constellation and Vega in Lyra. NASA suggests using the end of the Big Dipper's handle as a guide. It points in the general direction of Corona Borealis. Astronomers recommend getting familiar with the constellation's shape and the star's usual faint location ahead of time. That way, when it does erupt, the appearance of a sudden new star will be easier to notice. Historic West Harwich Schoolhouse will now be housing. West Harwich, the 1871 built schoolhouse at 5 Bell's Neck Road, left vacant for decades, has almost completed its transformation into multifamily housing. John Carey is turning the historic White School into 7 market-rate apartments. A second newly constructed building on the property will house 3 units set aside as affordable. The project should be complete in June, he said during a recent tour of the property. I want people to build housing for people our age. I want the Cape not to be a second home primarily. All of my friends that grow up here can't live here anymore, and that doesn't seem right, said Carey, who was 36. How the property became available. In 2022, the town put the property up for sale through a request for proposal process. Carey won the property with a $175,000 bid, getting it at a cheaper price than if he built housing there. It had been mothballed for years, said Carey. It was still a schoolhouse feel when you walked in. It had 2 roof leaks on either side, but other than the areas where water was dripping, the building was rock solid. These old buildings, that's how they are. Project details. Originally, he proposed 3 to 5 apartments, but the property needed a new foundation, which cost about $150,000, so 2 more apartments were added to the basement. His engineer noted the property still had plenty of room and capacity, so plans for the second building resembling the schoolhouse were then drawn up. The site also has a shed-like structure that will hold a gym or a common area. Overall, the project includes 8 one-bedrooms and 2 two-bedrooms. What the project looks like. One unit on the first floor includes a full kitchen with an island and overhang for table seating, a pantry, a living room area, and a master bedroom with a washer and dryer. Because of the ceilings, it feels bigger, and every room has tons of windows and lights, said Carey. It's a fossil fuel-free building. It's all electric and insulated ridiculously. A dormer was also added to the north side of the building. When we started building, the town said, we don't want you to change the facade, but you can repurpose other parts to make it more fitting for apartments, said Carey. So one of the clever things we were able to do is the attic was huge, had 14-foot ceilings. We put a dormer on the back and created this 850 square foot 2-bed. Carey aimed to use historic-looking materials such as cement board, which he said resembles cedar, and spent an extra $30,000 to match the original trim. Marketing for the units will likely be available in mid-May, said Carey. Funding and rent. Carey estimated the project as a $3 million project. He received $605,000 through the Affordable Housing Trust in Harwich and a $200,000 grant from the Mass Development Underutilized Property Program for the 3 units in the second building. Key to making this project successful was buying the land at a subsidized cost, teaming up with the Affordable Housing Trust, getting the grant money. But I'm also the owner, designer, developer, and contractor, said Carey. I'm in charge of all those things. That takes about 20 to 30 takes off 20 to 30% of the cost. Rents will start around $1,750, with 2-bedroom units around $2,500. Affordable units would be set around $1,550. What was found on the property? When clearing the schoolhouse to prepare for renovation, Carey said years-old items were discovered, including old newspapers and a flag with 48 stars. Classwork from 1875 is also found, belonging to a student named Charlie Chase, who had tucked a packet in the attic. The paper consists of his descriptions of documents his teacher read to the class, spanning subjects such as the Constitution, laws and rules, and poetry. Carey said the papers have since been donated to the Historic Society, where staff will review and scan the materials. And his great-grandfather was who donated all this land for the school and all this stuff. We've learned a lot about the history of West Harwich through doing this project, which is super cool, said Carey. Carey said he believed the property was used as a school until around World War II, when it later became a VFW. From the 60s to 80s, he said it became a recreation center where local kids hung out, ate pizza, and watched movies until closing around 1982. Future plans. Carey also wants to build a 40-unit mixed-use development at 48 and 52 Route 28 named West Harwich Square, adjacent to the schoolhouse property. He envisions the space incorporating a coffee shop and other commerce. This project is expected to include 10 units of affordable housing. As part of the proposal, the historic Captain Baker House will be moved to the back of the lot and turned into 2 housing units. In February, the Affordable Housing Trust approved $150,000 for pre-construction costs. The project should be before the planning board in June. West Harwich is kind of a ghost town. It's going to revitalize it, said Carey. Old school wins. Brewster Town Meeting nixes voting tech. When the decision on adopting electronic voting at the May 5 town meeting proved too close to call on a show of voter tags, moderator Charles Sumner glanced around the cafetorium at Stony Brook Elementary School and quipped, "So I'm going to use the clickers to tally it." The line drew laughs, a nod to the teller's mechanical hand clickers used for manual counts, not the electronic devices under consideration. The moment added a touch of irony to the debate as residents were weighing whether to adopt a system designed in part to eliminate the need for time-consuming hand counts. In the end, the article failed, counted the old-fashioned way. Resident Ed Wanamaker offered an article through a citizen petition that drew the most discussion of the 21 articles on the warrant during a 2.5-hour meeting. The measure sought $35,000 to purchase about 800 handheld clickers for anonymous voting and faster counts, technology already in use like towns like Chatham, Falmouth, and Orleans. On May 3rd, Truro voters agreed to pay for a 1-year pilot of electronic voting at the 2026 annual town meeting. The article in Brewster also proposed a bylaw change allowing the moderator to use the system in place of card shows, particularly for close votes, supermajority requirements, or when requested by 7 or more voters, while preserving traditional methods as a fallback. Electronic voting allows honest participation, proponent says. Wanamaker argued that electronic voting would make the town meeting more accessible and encourage honest participation, especially on sensitive or divisive issues. Many of my friends and neighbors have expressed to me that they don't want to come to town meetings to vote because knowing how someone votes on sensitive issues can affect a person's feelings towards their neighbors and could have a negative effect on their friendships and on private businesses, he said. He also said counting is a time-consuming and very possibly inaccurate exercise that requires taking 2 votes, a yes vote and a no vote, counted by tellers walking up and down the aisles with mechanical clickers. With an electronic system, Wanamaker argued, votes can be cast at the same time and tabulated almost instantly. Opponents argued that electronic voting was a solution in search of a problem and that it would undermine the core values of an open town meeting where issues are discussed and voted on publicly. It's simply an unnecessary expense. We spend money as a town to solve problems, but there's been no problem with voting at Brewster town meetings, said Selectwoman Mary Chafee. She also raised concerns that the system would be used infrequently, could bring its own time-consuming technical issues, and would require extra voter training. She mentioned that the tradition of public discussion and voting at town meetings has been a cornerstone of New England governance since the 1700s. The article failed by a vote of 131 opposed to 123 in favor. The hand count took about 5 minutes to complete. Smooth sailing for other business items. Several other articles on the town meeting agenda were approved with little to no discussion. Here are some of the key decisions. In town and school budgets, voters passed a $27.7 million operating budget for fiscal year 2026, which includes a 3.8% increase over the current year. in addition to a $13.18 million budget for elementary schools that reflects a 4.2% increase. They also adopted the town's share of regional school budgets, a $1.79 million assessment for Cape Cod Regional Technical High School, reflecting a $270,000 increase due to rising enrollment, and a $252,000 increase in Brewster's share of the Nauset Regional School District budget, which represents a 1.8% rise. Veterans tax relief. Voters quickly approved expanded property tax exemption under the state's HERO Act, including tying exemption amounts to the Consumer Price Index to keep pace with inflation, and increasing current benefits by 50%, with the possibility of 100% increases next year should the town's finances allow. An additional $25,000 was allocated in the fiscal year 2026 budget to support these expanded benefits for the town's approximately 90 qualifying veterans. Presently, eligible veterans may receive a benefit of between $400 and $1,500 annually. Under the new plan, a veteran presently receiving a $400 exemption, for example, will get a $600 exemption in fiscal year 2026. Paying for demolition at the sea camps. The meeting also approved $150,000 to demolish unsafe buildings at the former sea camps properties, bringing the total project budget to $240,000. Town manager Peter Lombardi said a 2024 evaluation identified several cabins in critical condition, citing issues such as compromised frames and hazardous materials. Lombardi acknowledged ongoing discussions about repurposing some of the sea camp structures, a consideration still under review for any that may be salvageable. He also said the money request is based on conservative estimate, and any unused money will either be allocated for future projects on the properties or returned to the general fund. Wastewater management petition tabled. Voters indefinitely postponed a petition article proposing spending about $300,000 to develop a comprehensive wastewater management plan, a town-wide strategy to deal with septic pollution, emerging contaminants like PFAS, and the long-term health of Brewster's water resources. The Brewster Ponds Coalition brought the petition. Coalition Vice President John Key said the group agreed to drop the petition after town officials offered to incorporate many of the critical components of their proposal into the town's integrated water resource management plan, a work in progress. As part of capital and special projects approvals, voters greenlighted putting $100,000 towards the town's efforts. In preschool pilot program, voters set aside $250,000 to continue Brewster's pilot preschool family support program for fiscal 2026. This initiative, which offers up to $3,000 per child to families with 3 and 4-year-olds, has already helped about 70 families in its first year. And that's it. My name is Frank, and thank you for listening.